here, and then we'll talk about all the moon juice that's been happening today.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. Well, I guess I'll just back it up to when I graduated college. It was 5 years ago ish. Um, I got my degree in mechanical engineering from Montana State University, which in Bozeman is Greytown, and then got a job after college and started doing I got a plan for my future, build wealth, all that stuff. And then started learning about stocks, like through 401ks and stuff. And then started realizing that what I was doing wasn't going to be able to build real wealth over time. So then I went and got a job in California and got an awesome job and was working down there and everything was going great. And then, I just started falling down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, dude. And I'd say everything was going great. And then, ooh, I'm getting a little feedback there.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's all good. I started learning about like the blockchain stuff, all the non-Bitcoin shit that's a lot easier to sell. And because in my opinion, it's way harder to understand Bitcoin than a lot of these shitcoins, like
on the surface for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because when all you've had is the American banking system your whole life. Someone tells you oh, this new XRP thing, it's so fast, low transaction costs. You're like, oh, that's obviously what money is. And then you gotta dig a little deeper to realize that money is how you transport value through time, not space. So anyway, went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and eventually just kind of the work I was doing I wasn't passionate about it. I'll just say that. And the company I was working for, it's one of the biggest in the world, but it was so dysfunctional, like many of the biggest companies in the world. And I had 3 different bosses while I was there. And I got a call randomly from some guy I'd never met that I got laid off on the spot. I was like, okay. And then instantly my actual boss that was working next to me was like, oh my God, no way. We need to get you back hired again. And I'm like, are you serious? So then I got a raise in a company car and I got a bigger,
oh shit.
Yeah. Cause I was this
actually did get you hired back.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, this is bullshit that I just got it. Some guy I've never talked to called me up and fired me. But then there was a restructuring of my company, and I got put into a position that I wasn't really signed up for in the beginning. I'm an engineer, I'm a math guy at heart, and I got stuck doing calling people, project managers, telling them to get their revenue up and stuff, and it kind of ate at me a little bit,
Right.
So yeah, and then my girlfriend, she got in a car accident earlier this year, and she just was off school. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna just quit my job, take all my 401k, buy Bitcoin at $8,000. So of course there's a bad tax penalty up front, everyone knows it, but I'm like, I can get this money right now and buy Bitcoin with it when it's extremely undervalued, and now it's my money for the rest of my life, and I don't have to deal with your crap, And
hell yeah.
Yeah. So then I just since then I've just went to some national parks, Yellowstone National Park and Glacier National Park, and just had a great summer and have just been chilling with my parents. And my girlfriend's almost done with law school and about to start her big law job in Orange County, and I'll be moving back down there. And yeah, life's good, and I'm just down the rabbit hole.
Nice. So what was the moment where, because it's such a common story where the Silicon Valley bro type thinks that Bitcoin is outdated, slow, rudimentary, all that stuff, and they're looking for the next fancy thing, right? The blockchain, whatever. And they get seduced by your Ripples and your Ethereums and your faster transactions and your whatever else. What was the moment where you realized, maybe when you were in this job or maybe afterwards, that it was Bitcoin, not blockchain?
Man, I feel like it was quite the journey there, because I still love the technology. Obviously, blockchain's at the core of what Bitcoin is, but it's I think it was going down the macro rabbit hole and realizing that there's a big picture going on right now. Like, it's not about faster transaction times or cheaper transactions. It's about how do you store value through time. People are using NASDAQ as their like wealth storage system, or real estate obviously has been a tried and true method, but there's obviously some fiat debasement going on. And yeah.
But when did you have that like realization?
It was when I was listening to a lot of Real Vision, I think.
Okay.
When I started getting really deep down the macro rabbit hole and seeing the big picture, and I'm like, oh shit, like we need money. Like we need a new entire monetary system. And that's when I came to the realization that like that Bitcoin will be the base layer of the financial system. It'll be the settlement system, the settlement layer of the entire financial system, and it doesn't need to do anything more than what it does now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized, like, because I mean, I came in at a weird time. I came in during like the 2017, like late 2017. So to be honest, I kind of fell down. I was into Bitcoin Cash for a little bit because I was like, oh man, like it's Bitcoin. It's got the same 21 million coins and it can do the more transaction throughput. And then you just realize like, no. I don't even know the exact moment, but it was kind of like, it was like a slow, like I was slowly realizing like I like Bitcoin way more than everything else, like by far, way more. But then eventually it was like, oh my God, like if the majority of your net worth isn't in Bitcoin right now, you're kind of like, I don't know.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know. I don't know. That's where I'm at right now.
When you made this move, like, cause you said you're 26.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
You're fairly young. You cash in your 401k that you've probably been contributing to for 2-3 years max, right?
Yep.
Were your family members, parents aware of this move that you were making?
Oh, I mean, you don't have to tell them about that part.
I'm just saying, because if they were and you made that move, I mean, not even 6 months later, you're looking pretty smart.
Yeah, no, I think they realize that I'm doing pretty good with those decisions. But no, yeah, I've had a nice little, like, I don't know, this is kind of like validation time, you know? Like, I feel like for a while, a lot of people, there was people saying like, oh, we're going to 1K, like, it's like, that's so far away in the past now. It's like,
oh God, yes, dude. I revel in the criticisms and the, like how people dismiss this. Like when I talk about it at, out to dinner or at a social event or something like that. Like when I have people that have that attitude, I absolutely revel in it. Because look, I know hubris and all the rest of it, but I'm pretty friggin' convicted about this thing. And it's going to take a lot more than just, someone who hasn't put in the time and effort to just say, well, sounds like it's not going to work, and then kind of laugh. Like I lap that up because I know how wrong they're going to be, and I know how delicious the "I told you so" is going to be. So
yeah, it just makes me more bullish, honestly. Like,
yeah, that's how early we are.
Yeah, we're that early still. Like, we're the ones that see it, and like, I feel like Michael Saylor was a huge validation. Like, I was already so convicted at that point. Like, it wasn't changing my position really, because I was already like almost like the majority of my net worth into Bitcoin. Yeah. So, but it's him and Raoul Pal and all these guys, and you're just like, damn, like, this is macroeconomics meeting like network effects, social, like technologies, exponential curves, like
all into one mind-blowing realization.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. My conviction, I can't imagine it really being higher. So like Michael Saylor and Raoul and all those guys that came in, and Paul Tudor and all that, I wouldn't say the level of conviction changed, but my anticipation or my prediction of how long this was going to take to play out, like, just keeps getting shorter and shorter with moves like that. Like at first you pin it at 20 years, then you're like, no, maybe 15, and then 10. And then, when you've got moves of the ones that were made this year, and I can't imagine next year is not going to even be more crazy with people making similar moves. the timeline is the thing that nudges forward to me, and like to a degree, because I always want to try to challenge my assumptions and check my biases, and it's almost impossible to do that entirely, right? But
Yeah.
you
I
and I
think
don't.
it's not responsible to do it entirely.
Well,
Like,
sure. You have to have a
way too
position,
much.
right?
You know way too much about Bitcoin to like disregard that.
Right, but you always want to have that critical view, I
Yeah,
guess is what
yeah,
I'm
yeah. You
saying.
always gotta kind of be like a little hater of your own opinion,
Right.
but then
And
you gotta.
that's what we do here in Bitcoin. We
Yeah,
put out opinions, and if they get shat on, you're like, "Oh, okay, well, that
yeah,
maybe that one needs refinement." And that's what I love about the space. But what I will say about like Paul Tudor Jones and Michael Saylor and those guys coming in is that one of the biases that might have been harder to see around or discredit would be like this being early in this revolution and this what's happening now is going to be life changing in many different ways, and one of them is financially for a lot of people, and it has been to a certain degree already, and will continue to be if this plays out. And I don't think I've ever been susceptible to this, but I think you want to try to divorce like the hopium from what you're seeing objectively, right? And when I hear guys like Paul Tudor Jones comment on kind of the quality of people in this space and kind of how passionate they are, how intelligent and passionate they are, and how that was something that compelled him to make a bigger allocation. And then when you listen to Michael Saylor, and he's almost gone past all of us that get cosmic all the time, the way he articulates all these things on Twitter and in these interviews he's doing. And to me, it kind of like it's further validation that we're not just hoping for this to be what we seem to be seeing that it is, just so that because we're so financially tied to it, because those guys are billionaires already. And I know they would still probably want to be more wealthy, but I don't think it has the propensity to cloud their judgment as much as it may people that aren't in that situation yet, So I think them coming in and doing that is just kind of further that we all seem to be coming to a very similar perspective and conclusion on this thing. Some a little bit more cosmic than others, but we're all coming to the same place, and that is validating, as you said.
yeah. What was the one that Michael Saylor did recently? As an engineer, it was so beautifully said to me, is like the monetary energy, and just having like a perfect time capsule for monetary energy, and how that's never existed before, and how every other system throughout time has had leakage, and how so you can go all the way back to like the beads in Africa, where someone else had a technological revolution, or fiat money. Gold there's mines being discovered every day, and the perfect monetary energy storage is a beautiful way to put it, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And we're so early. No one gets it. Like, people think that like US dollars are like poor people think having a bunch of US dollars is how you get rich. It's like, no, you have a lot of assets that give you income streams in US dollars, and you can turn that into whatever you want, or take a loan out on your building, like how the Trump guys do it, like, yeah, it's interesting seeing billionaires coming in is just weird, like when he had announced the other day, like, oh yeah, I also have like 15,000 in cold storage for personal. I'm just like, what? Like, like, oh my God, dude. And I love that
and he's still talking about going to bed feeling chronically short. I'm like, fuck you, dude. You're going to bed feeling short. You just told me you got 15,000 coin on your hand.
I just love it. I just think he just has a vision that's so cool. Like,
oh yeah, and he's definitely got a way with words. I'm talking to him tomorrow. I can't wait. But he's, and that analogy, the kind of the data, call it energy loss, call it, all of the different things that can act on a monetary instrument to disrupt its ability to store energy, or the representation of energy, or the convertibility of energy over time, right? And that could be like standard inflation, or he uses the analogy where even with gold, like let's say whatever, it's 2% inflation rate, but had you stored it in pretty much anywhere in the world over the last 100 years, except maybe Switzerland yeah, maybe just Switzerland, but very few places could you have stored it that there wouldn't have been something to act on it that would have disrupted its ability to store that energy, because it would have cut off your access, i.e. it would have been confiscated or stolen or whatever. And so like these are all the considerations that we make, and then you tie it back, because most people don't think about it in those terms, about it storing energy. And then he goes even more to say, well, look, how do you accumulate that energy? You devote your life force, your essence towards labor, towards thinking about things toward producing surplus, and then you put it into this energy battery, and then most batteries leak a tremendous amount and you can't store them over time. But if you're able to store your life force and your essence over the next 100, 500,000 years, there's some really kind of esoteric thinking that you could put around that about how the force of your being is able to live on far beyond you. And I know that's a bit of a stretch, but I like how people like Saylor and the more cosmic among us in this space will like actually play around with taking it there, so that we might shine a light on some new holes in the rabbit hole. That's what's so fun about all this.
Yeah, I think it was just yesterday I heard a different one from him that I loved so much. He said that monetary energy is the highest level of energy, and you can turn it into any one of the other types of energy sources, like kinetic energy for like warfare or train or a car, or you could turn it into all these the main energy sources. I can't remember the other ones he was saying, but it made perfect sense to me how monetary energy is just the most convertible among all the energy sources, and energy is the key to life,
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some cosmic people around here, and you're probably the king of cosmic, so I love it.
So what you mentioned you're moving to Orange County is it later in the year or early next year? I guess early next year at this point.
Early next year, yeah.
What are your plans? Are you getting back into the corporate world? Are you looking for something Bitcoin related? What's on the agenda?
Oh man, I would love a Bitcoin related job. I mean, I'm not like banking on it. I'm also looking for my mechanical engineering related jobs, but I would love to work in space. It's just so much energy, so much knowledge and potential, and yeah, that's where the future's at.
Yeah.
Did you hear that thing Paul Tudor Jones said the other day, where if you like short the dollar or like bet on deflation or negative interest rates, you're betting on like the fallacy of humans. On Bitcoin, you're betting on the robustness and the like future positive things that can happen. And I thought that was another great way of putting it.
Yeah, 100%. It was beautiful, and it's the pessimistic view versus the optimistic view. And you can make money shorting stuff effectively. You can make money being pessimistic, but and I think back to Saylor, I think he said this in an interview recently. Like, I can't remember the spiel that led up to it, but he was like, I don't want to make my money that way. I want to make my money in truth and honesty and like doing good. That's how I want to get it. Otherwise, I feel like it's kind of ill-gotten.
Yeah, have you seen the Big Short at the very end when the guy's like really sad about like getting so much money? Like,
yeah, I think I remember
Steve
that,
Carell's character is just like so upset, and he's like, "Should we just cash out now?" And he's like, "Well, I guess if we're gonna like get rich from America failing, now's the best time. It's failing." Yeah. So I like the idea that you can go long Bitcoin and not make money from like going short. Like it always feels better making money going long.
Yeah.
And
what I think is interesting about, so today for whenever anyone is listening to this, today we broke 15K. It's 2020 in November 5th. And what I've always been anxiously anticipating is the day when, Bitcoin pumps to whatever level, 20, 50, 100. And even though, because it's hard to find work in the space right now. Hard's a bit ambiguous, but like there's not, relative to the normal economy, there's not that many jobs in the Bitcoin space, right? So there's a lot of people with like pent up desire, because once you see this, you're like, of course you want to spend all your fucking waking hours like digging into this and contributing to it, right?
Yeah.
And but there's just, there's, unless you create the opportunity for yourself, there's not that much relative to the normal world yet. But two things. I mean, that's obviously changing with each passing day. And the other thing is, once people are kind of set free, I interviewed Gigi for this 21ism like creative launch that they did today, which if anybody hasn't checked that out,
Oh,
21.
is that new GIF that just came out?
Well, they put that out, but
Oh
that's
my
just like a
God,
little
it's so
teaser
funny.
for everything that they put out. Because so they're basically highlighting artists in the space, and artists defined broadly as in visual artists, writers, whatever, authors, and they're profiling them. They're doing interviews with each of them, highlighting their work and all that kind of stuff. It's really awesome. It's such a, again, like it's just the awesome type of shit that people are inspired to do in this space.
Yeah.
Just like support people that are doing great work. I love it. And anyways, I was honored enough to interview Gigi for the launch of this thing, and he was saying, like he was one of those people that was just being soul destroyed in his previous job. Like he just hated it, and he was he was super into Bitcoin, wanted nothing more than to do it. But you have to. It's a difficult choice to make because to give up your income and give up that comfort and that certainty and go off into the unknown. And for some people, they can't do it yet. But for him, he made the leap and he was like, well, fuck it. I just can't bear not to do it. And it's ended up working out for him. He now works at Swan full time and he's done some stuff
I
in
heard
the
about
space.
that.
And, but he would, my point is like some people will make that leap early and that's awesome. But for other people, we're going to have to wait until they get the kind of security they need to make the leap. And the higher Bitcoin goes, that's the more security. So like, I think when we hit, whether it's 20, 50, 100, whatever, think about the intellectual capital that's going to be unlocked by all these people that are just like, fuck it. Like I got a safety net. So why not engage fully in this thing? And then the explosion of creativity and innovation and, output that you're going to see in this space is just, it's going to be incredible.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of thinking about this on the spot and spitball. You know how technologies go through exponential curves, like S curves?
Yeah.
Is how they technically how they usually form. I think maybe Bitcoin being de-risked, which is what we're seeing right now, like the likelihood of it going below 10K is pretty low right now. So that means it's got a downside. Oh, yeah. It's got a downside of 50%. That's not that bad. What's the upside? Ridiculous. So like, is that the S curve? Is the middle the de-risk period? And then after that, most of the gains are gone after the de-risk because it'll be a madhouse, like a scramble for sats,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
probably.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think in 10 years we'll know if like we're on the Bitcoin standard or on the way to the Bitcoin standard or on the way to like China and America having like blockchain currencies, and it's not a good time. It'll be one of the two.
Yeah,
or a mixture, maybe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
because
it's so hard to determine what's going to happen in the kind of crazy world. Like I think Bitcoin will keep trucking along, but like when do we cross the kind of the event horizon where people just capitulate and be like, all right, well, it's going to be Bitcoin, so let's all just figure out how to make it so. That I don't know, but it's really difficult for me. Like I know basically that if you look at the S curve, we basically 8 more years is supposed to be the bulk of the ride up, and then we start plateauing a little bit, right?
Yeah.
By some models.
Sounds about right.
Like 8 years is a lot of time for this thing to unfold from where it's at right now. Like a lot of stuff could happen in that time, and it's difficult for me to think that this has another 8 years. That if this with another 8 years to play out, that this isn't like that we're not almost all the way there by then.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone earlier the other day about how this year Trump bombed that guy in January, like the Iranian general, and we're like, oh my God, this is crazy. Now that's just like that's nothing for this year's story of what happened. Like,
oh my God,
that's how crazy it was. And I thought that was one of the craziest things I'd seen. Is like, wow, he just bombed this really important Iranian general out of nowhere. And it's like, you're not even getting started yet. Like, so that's projecting 8 years out. Who the hell knows? This was 1 year during like the peak of, or this seems like the peak of the fourth turning. I'd think like,
Yeah, I mean, like we said right at the start, there's so many things converging. It's kind of hard to nail it down to one thing.
Hmm.
It's just so obviously we don't know how it's going to go, but I don't see the momentum uh, of Bitcoin slowing down. Like, just like look at what happened with MicroStrategy. I mean, they're up on the investment, they're up on the news. That story will spread like wildfire, especially in an environment where other means of netting the same result are extremely sparse and scarce. And yeah, man, you know what's I keep thinking is like I always kind of discount how the world is going to see this. Like, yeah, there'll be some capitulation and it'll happen in waves and whatever. But like, look what happens on an individual basis when you go from not seeing this to seeing this. You go from I'm a pretty normal person doing pretty normal things, living my life to I'm obsessed with Bitcoin. I'm all fucking in and I'm energized through my core about what this means for what the future looks like. And I want, and I'm just, you're motivated more than ever. And that happens to you and I, quote unquote plebs. And that happens to Michael Saylor, the guy with 6 yachts and 7 planes and whatever the
Right?
fuck else, And
That's
so,
insane.
it's almost like when you really start to see it, you can't see it a little bit. Or I guess you can, but like there's a risk or there's a high chance that you're going to see it all. And if even a decent portion of the world sees it that way, 10% or 20%, then everyone else will just follow along, nod their heads and be like, okay, well, like
You might
we
want to get some just in case
we
it
we
catches
agree
on.
with seeing it. Yeah, I mean, how can we deny that kind of exuberance and uh, enthusiasm about it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're headed for some crazy times, man. I'm pretty fucking sorry. I don't know if I'm supposed to curse, but I'm pretty
Yeah, it's fine.
bullish, man. I mean, you were saying your time horizon's changed a little bit.
Hmm.
If it's weird enough, my time horizon really hasn't changed that much through these last couple of. I've been pretty set on by the end of year we'll hit 20K, get a new all-time high, and then sometime in 2021, 2022 ish, we'll get between 100K and a million, something like that. And I
Well,
think.
yeah, but when did you get in? You got in this year, right?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
No, I got in late 2017.
okay,
So
okay.
I started buying in like I think I bought Bitcoin once at like 10,000 early on when I
Wow,
got kind of hyped up and I saw it was after it already went down. I was like, "Oh, it's going to escape." No. So then I've just been DCAing for like 3 years pretty much.
nice, nice.
And I've been pretty lucky with like I've been on the shitcoin trains for a while, but I've always been able to get off in time, and I'm almost all Bitcoin, and I'm just chilling right now. Like I don't
So
touch my Bitcoin at all.
yeah, the news this year didn't advance your timeline, like with Paul Tudor and Saylor and all those guys.
I guess maybe Paul Tudor did because that was pretty early. I think from then on, I was pretty convicted on that timeline.
Yeah,
Like even no matter what happened, even through the drops, I was buying everything. Like when it dropped down to 5,000, 6,000, I was just going all in. Like I was getting all the cash I could. I was not playing around. I knew what I knew what was happening. I was like, how are we getting this sale right now?
yeah,
Like
it
this,
was ridiculous.
like Bitcoin's made for this. Like quit acting like it's not. Like you can pretend it's not, but it obviously is performing.
Yeah. Um,
Undeniable at this point.
does your significant other see the orange light?
Definitely. Yeah. I'll have to
Nice.
share something with you. She made a poem. It's pretty long. She's a lawyer, so she's more of a word person, and she made a really awesome poem. I'll share with you. Put in a link or something.
Sure.
She's way orange pilled, like hardcore.
Do you have the poem there right now?
What is? I can't think of the name right now. It's uh, on, I can't think of it right now. I'm
Okay.
sorry,
All right.
but
That's
I'll
cool.
give it to you later.
Sure.
But yeah, she's way down the rabbit hole. She sees it. She gets Bitcoin. She like doesn't want me to ever spend any Bitcoin or use any Bitcoin. So that's all you can
Oh,
ask for.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
and she's like, oh yeah, as soon as I get my big law job, like once after the first couple weeks when we buy all of our furniture and stuff, like We need to
Furniture.
yeah. I'm I'm moving to Orange County and don't have any furniture, bro, and all that crap. But anyway,
You clearly lack conviction.
yeah, yeah. No chairs allowed in my house. Only beanie bags and other non-chair sitting devices. But yeah, then we'll get her on like a savings plan, get her stacking sats, and use that as the family treasury reserve asset.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
It's what do you think's going to happen? Looking at the macro lens, I know one of the big macro themes over the last couple of weeks was just kind of like what happens with the election, right? And how does it affect stimulus money? And I'm actually I've always been really interested in that stuff. And Real Vision and Raul coming on the scene, or they were on the scene, but kind of becoming more popular, was great. And your Lynn Aldens and your Prestons and your all those guys that really do that stuff really well.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been really interested in it, and I still am from an intellectual point of view. Like, it doesn't much matter to me because I'm pretty much all in anyways,
Yeah, you're
so
good.
like,
You're fine.
yeah, it's not like it but even like none of the information is going to influence my decision making is what I'm trying to say. So it's like I listen
Yeah.
to it almost for just intellectual, to chew on it intellectually.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's even like, should I be spending the time on that? Because there's certainly other things to be doing and learning about Bitcoin. And maybe if you're fully allocated like that, or if you've already made up your mind on this stuff, maybe understanding the ins and outs of all the different minor fluctuations that could happen, maybe that's just a waste of time. But anyways, my point is with this election, they've been saying, if the stimulus money comes now versus later, how does that affect things? And if we get like a spike in Corona, and if we get a lack of stimulus until the new year, how does that affect solvency? How does that affect liquidity? And even, I guess, how does that affect Bitcoin price? I know you're interested in that kind of stuff. I heard you talking with Princey a few days ago. What's your take on all that?
Man, I just kind of I've known for a while that they had to do some sort of stimulus, so that wasn't even a question. So like, I'm kind of like you. My position's pretty set with the assets I have. I'm not moving my Bitcoin. Nothing's going to change that. But like you said, it's interesting to look into the global macro because it affects all of us more than anything else, really. Like, if those economic shocks are devastating. And so as far as the politics go, I've always been like, I don't care. Like, Orange Coin's going to win either way. And it's just like, either way they have to print. Who gets the money from the printing just depends on who wins. And it just doesn't matter. Like, we're at the end days of Rome, and we're stacking gold before anybody knew gold was money. And like, it's just crazy that just earlier this year, people were buying Bitcoin at $5,000. Like, you could have bought a shitload of Bitcoin at $5,000 earlier this year.
Yeah.
And
generational buy was what that was
yeah,
being called at the time.
Yeah, that's how I felt, and that's why I was so convicted, and I wanted to go all in and just like cash it all out. And I was just like, "Yep, sounds good." Like, I can either keep like this money in my 401k that I can't touch. I can slowly get it drip fed to me when I'm 60 with these equities that I don't have faith in. I don't have faith in their basket portfolios or whatever. Or I can get over one Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm gonna take a Bitcoin for sure. So like, and yeah, no, I've just really enjoyed just chilling and freaking listening to podcasts every day, all day. It's amazing that the information age, what it can do. Like, you can learn more than a 4-year econ degree in an afternoon if you like pick the right Real Vision videos or get handed like the bullish case for Bitcoin.
Well, that's the thing, like the bullish case for Bitcoin, not the piece, but like the bullish case in general, like, is dissolving so much of the necessity or relevance of economic, financial, and investing thought and knowledge in a way. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's still a role for value investing, and there's still a role for certain things. But like, I think if anything, the fact that it is dissolving a lot of that, it just points to how convoluted things have become on a fiat standard, where things become far more complex than they need to be whether we're talking about economics or financial systems or monetary systems or politics. And what Bitcoin seems to be doing is just bringing, that simplicity back to all of these domains. And it's becoming, so not only can you do it quicker, but it's becoming so much more accessible to people. It's like, do you want to understand, because Austrian economics, I mean, I don't mean to demean, the great thinkers that came out of that time, but it's kind of like common, if you mix common sense with economics, like you don't need special, a little bit of like introspection and contemplation. And I think those concepts seem fairly natural.
Yeah, my saying for it is that Keynesianism requires like textbooks and like ideas and models and stuff. If you wake up hungry in the wilderness, Austrian economics is pretty clear to you.
Right, exactly.
Like scarcity, food is scarce, I want it. Like, how do I get it? I'll pay for it. Like, if there's a way I can get it, I want it. Like, and if someone else has it and I don't, what can I do for him? Do I have to work for him? Okay. Like that's, yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah, scarcity is just fundamental to human to human value transfer,
Yeah,
like
and the perverse incentives and structures that we've erected around our societies have kind of shrouded all of that in far more complexity and mystery than need be. So people are kind of intimidated away from understanding it, right? And it kind of felt like, oh, well, I'll just have to leave that to somebody else. And therein lies, the another doorway for corruption, because people get to sneak in that space between your fear of not being able to understand this thing and your need for engaging it, and someone acts as an intermediary to rip you off, basically. And that applies in so many different instances. Whereas this is, cutting out the middleman in more ways than one. It's democratizing the understanding of these systems and the ability to engage in them without having to, spend your lifetime studying them.
Yeah, so that's the key. I don't think that a firefighter or a teacher or a lawyer should have to understand that fiat money sucks and how to invest and how. They shouldn't have to. Should be just be an asset that they can buy, and if they want to get extra yield on top of that by some startup or whatever, yeah, they can do that. They don't have to. This teacher can just stack sats.
Yeah,
like they don't. Like most people don't care about getting the yacht. They just want to be able to retire at a decent age and be comfortable.
And most people don't, nor should they, in my opinion, have to make their capital available for production, which is what investment is, right? So now, if you're a fireman and you have a retirement fund, in order for that to work, you have to put your capital at risk. You have to make it available for, production. And whereas you might just, if given the option, you might just say, I like to go to work. I like to put out fires. Whatever I don't spend, I like to keep in savings. And I don't want to contribute any capital to the available pool for production. I just want to save. And obviously they haven't been able to do that, because you get destroyed if that was your exclusive approach, and you get pushed way out on the risk curve, and you in many cases you get destroyed there too, and you get diluted, and other, so many things get piled on top of that. But what's so exciting to me about what's happening with Bitcoin and what Bitcoin represents is just think, socialists are worried that, wealth concentrates and, people get left out and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think they realize in this particular case, imagine it would only take a few generations of saving surplus so that every successive generation is starting with a extremely solid foundation, excluding, of course, the possibility that your parents are degenerates and they just spend all the money that they have and don't leave you anything. But the fact that most people today in middle class environment will be left something by their parents. Maybe it's a bit of cash in a bank account, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's whatever, but they'll inherit something.
Yeah.
But that's something that they're inheriting, again, is victim to the same tendency for existing stores of value and risk assets that currently exist, whether they be dilution, whether they be depreciation, whether it be inflation, whether it be confiscation, whatever. And the fact that if you have a generation of society saving in Bitcoin, and that the value of Bitcoin is increasing, so it's a deflationary store of value, right? And in the future, probably just incrementally, let's say 2, 3, 4% a year, whatever it is. How many generations does it take before what's being left behind is more than enough to satisfy the needs of the following generation, so that they can come out and say, they don't come out, they don't burst out of the gate in life and say like, well, I've got to put myself through all this bullshit school and education just so I can come out and get a job to put a roof over my head, and then basically, do that soul destroying journey that so many have been on over the last ever. But they can come out and realize from day one that the pressure to sustain themselves is not that great. Like, they've got those bases covered. So that changes the nature of their education. It changes the nature of how they develop as a young person and what they want to become and do. And then it changes their options when they go out in the world and say, how do I want to deploy my energy here? The fact that that foundation is stronger and stronger and stronger with every generation, I mean, that's amazing. The wealth will be able to be preserved, transferred, and grown in that way.
Yeah, I mean, that was the original purpose of money, was to transfer value through generations and through tribes, through time. But it's been pretty perverted to this point. I mean, I used to be a bit of a Bernie bro. Like, I believed that, I still believe that I want everyone in America to have access to healthcare. Like, that's just something I believe in. I don't know how you get there, but it's something I believe in. But anyway, when you
what do you mean they should have access to it?
Just affordable access. Like, living in America, you realize that it's pretty outrageously expensive to like go to get medical care. So it'd be nice to have, I don't even know if it's like we have in our citadel, we have a doctor. I have no idea, but
mean, I want people to have access to anything they desire.
Yeah, right. Abundance,
whether it's healthcare or anything else, And I think the market is the best. The trick is the perversion of these times that we're in conjunction with what is probably a very genuine sense of compassion in most people, causes us to think the best way to provide something is to give it to somebody, for the real things that we think people really need, that maximize our compassion. It should be given to them. That's the best way to provide it. And I think that just creates a lot of misallocation of capital, and it impacts the incentives and affects the incentives in such a way that they end up not getting the best product or service that they ought to get or that they could get. They get it for a much higher price, and the strain that it places on society generally is far greater than it need to be. So I think, what's beautiful about Bitcoin is that it forces a free market ultimately.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that's going to be awesome. So I think in the future, healthcare is going to be so much better than it is now.
Yeah,
and it's going to be so much cheaper than it is going to be now. And people's incomes will be commensurately higher. So the cost comes down, incomes go higher.
Yeah.
And
so I probably should have finished what I was going on there. No, you're good. I'm no longer a Bernie bro. I came to this conclusion that socialism and communism really it really functions on the correct distribution of the pie. That is all of the economic power, or whatever you want to call it, the distribution of the pie, where capitalism focuses on who can bake more pies more efficiently and who can get the cost of baking pies the lowest. And if you go through that enough time cycles, you realize that's how you create abundance. It's not properly distributing pie, it's making as much pie as possible for everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's when I came to the conclusion that, like, obviously, like, I don't agree with socialism. I think it's more of like on a family level. I believe in socialism and communism, obviously, but the farther you move up, the more you need to like the sovereignty of the individual, I guess.
Yeah. And I thought about this the other day, and to use your pie example, and I agree to an extent with that characterization, but I think it's also interesting to note that the incentives in the free market are such that people don't only just say, how do we make more pies more efficiently, but they say, what are people really wanting when they say, I want pie? They're saying, I want my taste buds stimulated in a particular way with a particular flavor.
That's true.
What other ways might I deliver that? Maybe it comes in a brain implant or a pill or whatever. And the reason why I think about it that way is because the road in front of my house has been under construction for 2 months, right? So the city council said it's just their turn the road didn't need to be redone. It's completely absurd, but they tore up the whole thing. In the process, they broke the water main, and they had to fix that. And then you know, it was a whole big thing, and they're finally getting to paving it back over again. And it makes me think, first of all, the ineptitude and the inefficiency is crazy. There's like 8 guys standing around one guy. Like it's literally like that. But my point is like the government will always just say, like, that road needs to be fixed. That road needs to be like done. This healthcare needs to be provided. The scope of, and they'll say like, okay, it's broken. We fix it. That's what government does. That's how, you know, it's supposed to be. They won't say, you know, they won't go higher on what they're trying to solve and say, well, really what we're trying to do here is make transportation more convenient and efficient and safe, for example. They're always just going to say the roads are broke, we fix the roads so that cars can drive on them. And then you get the free market come along, and Elon's a great example in many different ways. But he'd say, well, if our intention is to travel farther, faster, more efficiently, and safer, how does that done? Well, maybe it's by digging holes, you know. And so like that's what's the beauty is the not only the efficiency in doing the task, but in innovating on the task and refining down what actually the demand really is, and getting closer and closer and closer and closer to meeting the demand, you know, perfectly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, if your job is just collecting pie and distributing pie, you don't care what the flavor is. You just say, be happy that you got that amount of pie. But if you really want to get to the core of it, you need to figure out what kind of pie people want. You have to go deeper into it if you want the full package and to have the full ability of growth. Like it's going to be weird how they even measure economic growth in the future, because everyone uses GDP now. You know, what's the
Yeah.
GDP? What's the GDP? That makes no sense in a Bitcoin world, you'd think, right? Like
Yeah.
how many Bitcoin are in your treasury? That's the Bitcoin world. Like how many Bitcoin do you have access to?
I wonder if there's even going to be a necessity to measure economic growth. Like right now, you have to for all these crazy economic models, you know, on
Keep the
which,
pyramid together. You got to
yeah,
kind of
exactly. And for this like this perverse way that we price capital through interest rates and all the rest of it, like you kind of need a certain calculation for CPI, a certain calculation for GDP, and that kind of stuff. But if you're just operating a society in a marketplace on a sound, incorruptible money, like there will still be forecasting, I guess, but those types of forecasting may not be as useful or necessary. And so maybe they just go away, and people, you don't even have to figure that out. Are people happy, prosperous, peaceful? You know, that's a pretty decent metric, right?
Yeah, I still think there will be some form of debt markets, because humans love debt, and
Oh, absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
humans also love yield. And there's always going to be a new guy to tell you that there's a risk-free high yield proposition, BlockFi, rehypothecate that shit. Who cares? Like, there's always going to be that. But I get what you're saying. It won't matter as much. Just it matters if they pay you. Like, do they pay you? Like, if they keep paying you, then that's good. Like, and if you're going to start having more trade with a country, you might want to like make sure they have some Bitcoin, or have like some, I don't know. It's just interesting when you think of geopolitics with Bitcoin at the center, like the multi-sigs and what kind of weird shit's going to happen on a country level. Eventually, I'm saying 20, 30 years from now, like, I think they're not going to have a choice. They're going to have to adopt it. And whoever gets left behind is, I hope the Bitcoiner countries are compassionate to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question mark. Even when you say that, like 20, 30 years, like it's really hard for me to imagine that, well, Iran just said they're going to be using Bitcoin to like circumvent sanctions or whatever. And there's been suspicion that North Korea and other places have done this already. But
Oh yeah.
like again, the game theory is so compelling that, you know, once a couple like make public that this is their approach, and once that approach is proven effective and beneficial through, you know, the price continuing to NGU continue to go up and up and up, I can't see it, other countries waiting that long, right? That's the whole idea behind it, is that, you know, you see an adversarial country or a competing country in some capacity do this thing, and you know that you're going to be competitively disadvantaged if you don't do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Bitcoin's for friends and enemies, and that's
yeah,
it's really important to understand that. And you have to go deep down the game theory rabbit hole to come to the conclusion that I don't like sounding arrogant or anything, but it feels pretty inevitable at this time,
Right.
just due to the dynamics of, I mean, this is stock to flow playing out like pretty good. I mean, I haven't even kept up on it lately, but this recent pump has been pretty aggressive. Like,
It's been very aggressive. There's a stock to flow multiple account on Twitter, so I can check and see what it is.
yeah, that's an interesting debate. I think some people got a little too fired up about it. I think it's all models are inevitably not true and they will break, and that's just how models work. I just think it's really cool. Like, even if it totally doesn't work and if it breaks to the upside or downside, I just think it was a really cool piece of just Austrian economics work, really. I think it'll go down in Austrian economics history.
Yeah, the 16 hours ago, the actual price was quoted as 14,000, which has changed a bit now, and the model price is 20,500.
Okay.
So,
well, we got some catching up to do, eh?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's another one of the fun things about this space. Like, it's food for thought. It's interesting. I hang my hat on all of the research and contemplation that I've done on this thing. And like, for me, all the halvings are priced in because I'm looking at this thing as a limited supply, 21 million. Like, I get that there's a psychology in each of the successive halvings, but like when I go all in, for example, I'm not looking at it as the existing supply. I'm looking at it as the maximum supply. And so I think, everyone's going to look at it slightly differently, but I just think it's fun. Like, great. If it mirrors it, if it matches it, if it traces it, follows it, that's cool. And it'll get a certain type of people probably more amped up and pique their interest. Like maybe the finance bros will look at it and be like, more intrigued, and that because the Bitcoin has so many doorways into it, like whether you're an artist, a finance person, a business person, a philosopher, like it and ever more, as people write about this stuff and as this space expands and the intellectual capital continues to express itself through it, like you're finding that there's room in here for everybody, and there's a hook on this thing for pretty much every intellectual pursuit. Like, you want to relate this to music, yeah, there's tons of people doing that, or art, or like it. And I've said this before, but I think that's at least partially because it's fucking money. It's relevant, and as we said at the beginning of this thing, it's it's emblematic, or it's a representation of your stored surplus energy or your sacrificed energy, or however you want to articulate it. So, that means that it's applicable to everything. It touches everything. So I think that having more doorways into it, whether that or not they end up being like the end all be all of how you should be looking at this thing, is kind of irrelevant. If it's a doorway that piques your interest, then great.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I see it too. Like, it's for certain, like as a math guy, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. Like, and the fact that I also like the idea that you can use the first 4 years of data and do a pretty good job of tracing out the 2017 rally. That's pretty bullish in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just fun. This is such a good space. I mean, even beyond the price, the economics, like there's a deeper level that I know you talk about all the time. And I think the people that really go deep down the rabbit hole, this is where they chill at most of the time. Like the the economic side is cool, but like, let's make the world a better place. Like, fix the money, fix the world. That's where I think you Michael Saylor, Stephen Livera, Max Kaiser. There's just so many OGs, dude. It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, man. I gotta say, like, and I think maybe that's because it seems like the financial aspect is going to be sorted, so you can express other ambitions that you might have.
Yeah, not much is changing on that front. I mean,
yeah, and not
TikTok, next block, nothing.
Exactly. And like everyone wants to stack more sats, but I think you realize that while securing your own life and future and those around you is like of paramount importance, there's also other really important and available opportunities here. And one of them seems to be, kind of reshaping humanity that's not an exaggeration. I mean, reshaping how humanity coordinates itself in the world that we get as a result. And knowing that so many of the people I talk to in this space are just, like you just said, they're just good people. Like they're just really good people. And like they have different peculiarities, different parts of their personality that maybe are a little bit different, come from different backgrounds. Some are a little bit testy, some are like are a little bit more flamboyant. But like once you get to the core of them, like so many of them are just like salt of the earth good people. And it's awesome to be able to mix it up with people like that and also get the like, you know, the locker room fucking razzing that comes with it, and the, you know, the hope and collaboration,
the
the
community
community.
vibes is great.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's pretty sweet, man. It's just I feel bad for the shitcoiners, honestly. Like, they're missing out on just
I don't, because they're just at this point. You're if you don't if you spend this much time around this and you don't get it,
it's your
you're
own fault.
a fucking idiot. You know?
Yeah, right. The thing that gets me is at some point you have to realize that all the smartest people are talking about, they don't say cryptocurrency, they say Bitcoin for a reason. It's the money. It's the like the value layer of the entire economy. Like what, I don't know. People, it kind of bugs me when these like ETH guys talk about ETH being hard money. It's like if humans can change the monetary policy, it's therefore not hard money.
Yeah,
Like that's the end of the story. Like
yeah,
they've had their difficulty bomb or whatever they call it, the ice age that's supposed to change the supply, and they've delayed it 12 times. If you can change the monetary policy, it's not hard money. Fuck off. Like
yeah.
Bitcoin's in its own ballpark, you know, it's doing its own thing. And the I think the shitcoiners will hop on train once they see the gains. They're noobs. Like
Yeah, I agree. But you know what? There is a role to play because they get to kind of uh, bring about questions and debates about stuff, and maybe we get to have them in a different arena so they don't come to Bitcoin. Like there are actually, from what I can tell, maybe
there's
not a
positive side effects. That
yeah,
like
oh yeah. But I mean,
I
there's a contingent of Bitcoiners, like, and particularly I've noticed, like in kind of on the dev side of things, that are open to the idea of, you know, changing the monetary policy should the, you know, kind of need, quote unquote, need arise in the future. And I'm surprised by that perspective when I hear it.
I don't think they understand Bitcoin. So like I think 21 million is such a selling point that like at this point you're never going to get the social consensus and the node consensus to switch that off. So I think it's kind of irrelevant. And if for some reason it happens in the future, it'll be because of something we can never predict. Like
I agree, and I don't think they'll get the consensus for it either. But I guess
yeah.
I'm just like, what I'm saying is I'm just a bit surprised that they don't realize that one of Bitcoin's kind of the reason why it's Bitcoin and why it's so special is because certain things cannot and should not ever be changed. And
Yeah, that's key.
if we do that, we've just got kind of another cool project on our hands. We don't have, you know, to borrow some of Breedlove's terminology, we don't have the incorruptible substance anymore. We just have something that is a toy, basically. And
that's why I think to say something is hard money, it needs to have that monetary policy that can't be adjusted by man.
yeah,
Without work. I mean, obviously we can put on more miners. It makes, but there will be a difficulty adjustment. Just like no man could just flip a switch and adjust the quantity of gold. They have to put in the work.
yeah.
So that's what I'm not sold on that part of Ethereum being hard money. But
What
yeah,
what
what's up?
what we were talking about the community a second ago. I meant to ask you what has been, and I think I heard you say this on Princey's pod, that you've kind of orange pilled a lot of your friends. But what's been the kind of nature of your social life after you went down the rabbit hole and kind of have all consuming Bitcoin on the mind all the time?
Yeah, no, I definitely put myself in a like a pre and post like event
Right,
horizon.
right.
Like because you can be in Bitcoin and not be like in Bitcoin. It's when you cross over the event horizon, you like take
Hmm.
the orange pill, you see it, and you can't unsee it again. Then it changes things. Friends that I used to be tight with, I'm just like, you know, like just a different vibe these days. Like
Yeah.
I'm just thinking long term, and yeah, I don't know, man.
It's
It
strange, right?
changes. It changes. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that it is strange. I'm really glad that my girlfriend's orange pilled.
that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really huge because I talk about a lot of this stuff with her. She wrote an awesome poem. She's brilliant and she's a lawyer, so good person to like shoot the shit about it with. But
Oh man, that is priceless.
yeah, no, and she's beautiful. Like I can't complain. And but and I'm actually think I'm gonna get married soon. That was something I
Oh
just
shit.
decided. So yeah, life's good, man.
I hope she's not listening. Or did you guys decide that together?
Yeah, we decided that together. I didn't want. I'm not about like. We're not.
Surprising.
We're not technically engaged yet. That's to come. But
Right.
we just know that we want to. So
Well, congrats.
thanks, man.
Was that influenced by Bitcoin? Starting a
No.
family sort of thing?
Well, this part was influenced by Bitcoin. I used to be much more of a shitcoiner, and starting like finding someone I loved and someone I wanted to make a family with, and I started to like have a vision of way farther out into the future, made me realize like I need to get out of all my shit coins, go pretty much all Bitcoin. Like I don't need to hit the home run, like quote unquote home run that you can hit with an alt. Like it's the risk reward on Bitcoin is not even comparable to anything else. So it helped me on that front. I'm like, I want to de-risk my portfolio, which to some that might sound crazy saying almost almost all Bitcoin de-risking their portfolio, but you know,
the people who know, they get it.
Yeah. So it changed me on that front. Like it made me more risk adverse, made me be like, you know what? Like I've got a long life with a beautiful woman and I want to have kids and I want to pass down sats. Like if I leave a bunch of sats on the table messing around with some shitty, you know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
Even though I am still very excited about the technology in that sense, I don't fit in perfectly with the altcoiners or the like hardcore Bitcoin maximalists because I don't know. Altcoiners really don't like me. Those who I don't like the hardcore altcoiners I don't fit in very well with. Because once you understand Bitcoin, you can't take their shit. You know, like I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but like people that say like Bitcoin technology is whack or it needs to change, it's just like you don't get what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't need to change one bit. Like it changes other people before it ever gets changed by an individual. Like,
wow, that's the fucking crazy thing about
yeah,
all
that's
this.
the trip.
That's what happens. Bitcoin is changing people dramatically, and you know this is I talk about this all the time, and I don't know. I can't stop being fascinated by the fact that you know this thing that exists only you know digitally on the internet has it's not like it's not even like an app that you like has a skin on it or interact with it. Like it's really just
it is weird how it reprograms human brains.
Yeah, it's just a way of preserving and transferring energy like we've been talking about, and it's dramatically changing how people behave, you know.
It is weird how just some lines of code running, hashing all around the world can affect so many people. And it's just like,
it makes you want to have a family. Like, what's that about? There's a few lines of code make you want to have a family. Like, what?
Yeah, but what it does do, like, it gives you hope, and you need hope to want to bring a kid into this world.
100%.
And that's what I think a lot of Bitcoiners feel this way. Without Bitcoin, it'd be pretty hopeless out there, in my opinion. At least I don't know what I would be really hopeful about right now. There's
a scary notion.
Yeah, so it almost feels like too good, you know, like we got so lucky, like that Bitcoin was put on the earth at the time it was, and like how easy it would have been for a nation state to attack it in the beginning. Like
the whole thing is mythical. It really is. Like all the different elements of the story. It's just but that in itself gives me conviction sometimes. I'm like, this all just lined up way too good to be a flash in the pan thing. Like this is legendary from the get-go, and every element about it is legendary, and it will be told in a legendary fashion. And you know, I can't escape that.
it's it's awesome because it's virtually perfect money. It's got an infinite stock to flow. It's decentralized. Like there's all the things that really matter. At the end of the day, what matters in this blockchain space? Decentralization. That's probably the number one thing. Is there anything even close to decentralized? It's orders of magnitude. You know, it's not even the cyber hornets are. It's insane. So
I
yeah.
think I
Oh,
was just
sorry.
going to say, I think what we you mentioned hope, right? And I think if this is also kind of showing us what the power of hope actually is, and kind of making us realize how maybe much we'd lost of it in the past, and you don't necessarily you're not necessarily conscious of this all the time. You just go through life and you feel a certain way and you behave a certain way and you don't assess it that often. Maybe occasionally you do. Psychedelics help with that, of course, and other things you can do kind of help you reframe what's going on inside and in your life. But I think one of the hugely powerful things about Bitcoin is like we're starting to see all the stuff we're talking about, this behavior change, these habits changing and stuff, is very much indicative of the power of hope. Like what happens when you look out into the future and you see opportunity and potential versus challenges, impediments, and doom, basically.
Yeah.
And I think what it does is it makes you realize that now, because before the impediments were the world is so corrupt, how can I ever overcome the corrupt forces of the world, be they government, business, military, whatever. Like it's too much for little old me to overcome. So almost kind of why bother? I'll just carve out my little piece of whatever and I'll watch my Netflix and have my family and do it that way. But I think what this level of hope does is it removes all of the impediments and then it shines the spotlight right back on you. And it says, now you're the only impediment, because the future is anything you want it to be now. It's limitless potential. So now the only limiting factor is you, motherfucker. So what are you going to do when faced with that circumstance? And I think that's why a lot of us are looking at ourselves now and being like, well, fuck, I got to get in better shape. I got to get better educated. I got to save for the future. I got to refine the best parts of myself even more so that I can express them and use them to extract some of that potential that I now see on the horizon, and knowing that I'm the only one stopping me from doing that. I think that's a huge part of this transformation we're seeing.
Yeah, and I think this level of hope, especially from where we were at, changes your like neurochemistry. It changes everything about you. Like just having a positive outlook, waking up every day, like versus like, oh man, doom and gloom, like I'm stuck in this system, blah blah blah. Versus like I I'm a sovereign individual. Like I'm chilling. I got my keys on multi-sig. No one can touch me. Like it's just a different outlook, you know. um, yeah, no, I just feel like blessed to be born right now and have Bitcoin. And I know it kind of sounds like a religion at times, and I think I think that has to do with the fact of money being very faith-based. But like we have to have faith that the monetary policy won't change. We have to have faith that a bad piece of code won't come in. Um, yeah, but it is crazy. It is like
I think part of the religious aspect too is that a big part of religion is kind of um, proposing the optimal behaviors and having an authority on top of those so that you kind of believe that they are the optimal behaviors. So here are the things you shall not do. Here are the things you shall do. And if you do or don't do them, God's going to spite you or reward you. And that's the kind of authority that gives gravity to the behaviors that are being proposed as being optimal. And Jordan Peterson has some great, talks about the biblical stories and how from a psychological and evolutionary perspective. But I think the reason why that might apply to Bitcoin is because the same process that I just articulated about looking out in the future, it's saying like now certain behaviors align with, you doing well as an individual and also in how you engage in the network. Certain behaviors are going to net better results than others. And you refining yourself to extract those good behaviors will enhance your capacity to do that. And the authority is the rewards that the network and the market on which it's predicated doles out, right? For you performing the behaviors that are most optimal in an interactive, social, coordinated sort of manner. So I think in a way that's part of the reason why it has a religious connotation is because it's similarly guiding behavior and transforming individuals into expressing different behaviors as in an effort to net a better outcome for the individual and the collective as a whole. I think that's part of the reason why it's religious.
All right, I got a question for you. When do you think there will be a Bitcoiner party that starts showing up in political circles around the world, like in USA, let's say, for example, like maybe in like 10 years, couple more halvings? A couple more halvings and some rich ass Bitcoiner, like the Winklevoss twins, are going to be like, all right, I'm gonna give everyone a 1/100th of a Bitcoin. Vote for me.
I don't know how that's going to play out. Like, is it going to get so hairy that it's just going to be a bunch of sovereign individuals in their citadels all over the world? Or
I don't think so.
are Bitcoiners going to get political and be like, we got to right this ship sort of thing?
Yeah, and
I mean,
think,
obviously you'll get both, but
yeah, you'll definitely get both.
But
I
I
think
don't
that's how
know.
it should be. I think the people that want to just go be a sovereign individual, I don't think the people doing in like a Bitcoin organized society would care if they just want to be a sovereign individual, as long as like they don't break the rules.
Yeah,
I mean, the rules of it's an interesting world we're heading into.
they're
I
going to
think
be capitalized soon, if that's your question. Like,
yeah,
think
yeah,
about by the next halving, by 2024. I mean, let's say we're at a Bitcoin price of, I'll be
100,
super conservative, but over 100K by the next halving, right?
yeah,
That means, there's going to be some Bitcoiners with mega time money, that they could easily fund a political party and fund all the things that needed to do that. Like you mentioned, the Winklevosses and the Chamas and the,
yeah.
those people.
I mean, Saylor. He's American, right? Does he live here? I have no
Yeah,
idea.
he's he's American.
Probably lives on his yacht. Who knows? If I had a yacht, I'd live on it.
It seems like he does. He does all of his interviews
Right?
from it. Yeah.
Swag, bro.
But yeah, I think that's probably inevitable, and more power to the people that want to go down that road. I think it's obvious.
I think it'll take both to get to a future, because I still think that humans are such social creatures. Like we want to be in big groups that are fun, like or they'll just naturally show up in some places, like somewhere someone's going to want to have a city.
Yeah.
Making that function on a Bitcoin standard will be interesting, but
I just think the benefits of being on a Bitcoin standard and trying to attract and appeal to people with Bitcoin capital is going to be so obvious that, like,
incentives, the incentive structure there for political arbitrage or regulatory arbitrage, it's going to be crazy, dude.
Like, dude, if you're fucking St. Kitts, or if you're like Vanuatu, or if even you're like a
why
Bermuda, like, exactly. Why not? You're kind of beholden to nobody.
Yeah.
And you'd get, all this influx of capital, but even like smaller countries that aren't your stereotypical like island tax haven nation sort of places, like, I don't know, like Costa Rica or something, or Colombia, or like if a country like that just went on a Bitcoin standard, I think how rapidly their economy and society would transform, the world would take note pretty quick. And I don't think it would take long to transform. I'm talking like 5 years sort of thing, and you'd see dramatic results.
Imagine if they said like, if you pay us like 0.1 or 0.01 Bitcoin, and buy some amount of real estate, you get automatic citizenship, blah blah blah. I'm sure there'll be plenty of countries doing that, like trying to offer passports for Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
I don't know
that'll be step one, I guess.
Yeah, that'll be part of the attraction of capital, but that's what makes me very optimistic about not having to leave USA in the long run. I think the game theory will work out where USA will be like, oh shit, like we don't want these people leaving. Like,
I hope you're right. That's obviously a big question mark, but I hope you're right, because obviously it's an amazing country, amazing people, amazing landscape, amazing history, and you'd love it if like reason and freedom kind of won the day, and that's a transition of that kind took place, and it wasn't the opposite of just like a dying system trying to hold on with every last breath.
Yeah, I think economics is the real truth. Like the Soviet Union thought they had that shit on lock and they were going to last forever, but eventually economics will tell the truth.
Yeah.
And if the US dollar starts being devalued and the people don't have any money and um yeah, cuz I mean the wealth inequality is pretty crazy in America right now. There's a lot of people that don't have much.
Oh
And
man, and think about how bad it's going to be as a result of what's happened just this year. Like we've just basically had a decade of inequality inducing monetary and fiscal policy enacted in less than a year.
yeah,
So
it's
the results that are going to stem from that in terms of inequality are going to be fucking insane.
you ever listen to Ray Dalio, his long-term debt cycle? Like
I have heard that, yeah.
yeah, I feel like right now is definitely the time where the long-term and short-term debt cycle are colliding. And how do they solve it? Just exponential printing of money. But QE doesn't really solve the problem because then they're just switching bonds for reserves at the Fed, and
No, of course it doesn't solve the problem. It's
it doesn't solve the
absolutely
problem at all.
ridiculous.
It actually takes liquidity out of the system because you take pristine collateral, you give it to the Fed, and then they give you reserves that they're not as good a collateral as the Treasury bond.
Yeah,
So
but it's like people say, like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and that's what like when you have a highly um, perverted monetary, financial, and economic system, everything looks like an interest rate adjustment and a monetary easing, you know,
yeah,
and UBI fiscal spending sort of thing. And I think it I mean, this year obviously makes it clear that that's not working anymore because it has to go up by almost an order of magnitude every time these crises happen. And like when you look at the charts and stuff, I know we all think like, yeah, but it's not going to play out immediately. It'll probably be another 10 years before things get really bad. And I'm like, maybe because, you know, 2008, I was around when a lot of people were saying like, this is the big one. This is when everything goes to shit. And obviously, you know, things persisted in some capacity. But you look at a lot of these charts about, you know, money supply and debt and, you know, interest rates, and you think, can they really keep going parabolic in whichever direction, you know, in the directions they're going, like, and not create like uh the types of disruptions that are ultimately too destabilizing to the system that actually cause it to break?
yeah. Well, I
I
mean, the
don't know.
future I envision is definitely involving CBDCs. As much as us Bitcoiners understand they're horrible, they're not going to be sold like that. They're going to be sold like that's what blows my mind is all these people are rushing to get a CBDC out, and the politicians are using excuses like, "Oh yeah, these will everyone loves shopping online now. This will make shopping online so much easier." It's like, no, you motherfuckers want to go to negative interest rates, and you can't do that until you have a digital currency. And because did you see the IMF's paper about a year and a half ago saying that the only way you can get um, n- deeply negative interest rates is you need to have a dual currency system where you have cash and you have e-money like the CBDC, and the cash will have a negative interest rate against the CBDC. So if you try to do a bank run and get the cash out, your cash will have a negative interest rate against the CBDC, which has a negative, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like you're screwed either way. Um, so that's what they said. That's the only way they can go to deeply negative rates. So that's what I see coming. Because
Yeah. I mean, I think it's another attempt to kind of, you know, and again, this brings up all these questions about the Rona hysteria. It's like randomness happens, of course, and people overreact out of, you know, fear and ignorance, and an abundance of caution and whatever, right? Those incidences happen in the world, but also people with, you know, powerful people with certain interests, you know, leverage or manufacture things, and that also happens. And I don't know which one's at play here, but you know, all this talk of a great reset and you know, the kind of get out of jail free card that this crisis is going to represent for all those institutions that we've been shitting on for several years, and the
I mean
ones at which we're discussing.
that's what Rona is. Rona was engineered.
Well, this is
And
what I'm saying. I'm not making an assumption about like what it was. Who knows, right? Like
yeah, you don't
I'm
have to
just
say it.
saying.
I'll say it like it's engineered. You can keep going. It's
I'm just saying. I'm just
yeah,
saying
I know.
for the
I got
people
you.
that
I
listen
got
that
you.
are averse to that,
It's an
extremely
excuse.
extremely convenient excuse to wash away all the ineptitude and all the corruption and all the bullshit of the past and
Yeah, what
say
was the repo market?
it wasn't our fault, it was that fault. And so trust us,
Yeah.
this time we're going to make something even better. You guys are going to love it. And you know what? A lot of people are going to buy that. A lot of people.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I mean,
they're.
look at the hysteria
I mean,
right
it's
now.
the thing that they're going to do exactly what China did. They're going to say, download this app, and we'll give you your $1,200 stimulus check
Right.
in a digital currency. Whoa, here's a video explaining digital currencies. Cool. But really, what they're doing is they're opening an account with the Fed. And what they're not realizing is that account with the Fed can you can earn a positive yield on it. Let's say they say this month is firefighters month. All firefighters get a 3% yield, and people that other people like teachers are going to get a negative 3% yield this much because they've been teaching bad. Like all these things they don't understand they're signing up for. They're opening an account with the Fed
Yeah.
that use programmable digital bearer assets that they control the consensus.
An
Like
insane amount of centralized control being injected into people's lives, man. And again, like a huge portion are going to buy this. Did you see the IMF, like the thing that they put the inflation video about the chair, and then the
I love it.
Jamaican central bank, they did a music video about inflation? Tell me you saw that.
Oh, I didn't see the Jamaican one. I
Oh
saw the
my God.
other.
As soon as we're finished, you go on Twitter or on YouTube and find the Jamaican central bank rap song about inflation.
Does it
It's
have
the
chairs in it?
I don't know, but it's the best piece of unintentional comedy you may ever see
Okay,
in your
okay,
life.
I'll check it. I'll check it out.
But what my point is like it showcases just how stupid they think people are. That this is a passable form of supposed information about something that they're a policy or an approach to monetary policy that they're enacting. Like, really, that explanation you think is sufficient for your audience to go, okay, well, that sounds good to me. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, for a big portion, it probably is. But obviously, for a growing portion, it's not. And Bitcoin doing its thing puts pressure on their narrative, because more and more people, whatever like we were saying before, whatever their doorway into Bitcoin is, they end up walking down that path and starting to question things and learn things and realize how absurd the system that they're trying to promote to them is. But
I showed
yeah,
my girlfriend that the chairs video, and at the very end, she was like, "What does low and stable inflation have to do with affording chairs?" And I was like, "Oh, that's because what they don't tell you, a little asterisk in the bottom, is that Cindy used a credit card to buy that chair because she doesn't have any money." But I was just, that's what I was telling her. I was like, this is who we're up against. Like, it's the Robert Breedloves and the Michael Saylors of the world versus the IMF saying low and stable inflation makes it so you can afford chairs.
yeah.
So, like, is it inevitable? Maybe.
Yeah, gives you a lot of confidence that you're on the right team, right?
Yeah. So, how long have you been in Bitcoin? When did you first fall down the rabbit hole, like fully?
Well, that's the relevant question, right? Because looked at buying it in order to buy DMT, like way back when it was under $1, and then bought it in 2014 for the first time, but never like fully went down the rabbit hole. It's really hard to pinpoint, but I think it
It's
was,
weird.
and I was a strong advocate like in 15, 16, 17, but I'm gonna say something now, and it's painful for me to say, but I bought gold in 17, and I may have even sold Bitcoin for gold in 17.
Oh no.
Yeah, some.
Oh no, you're a traitor. Go hang
I
out with
know.
Schiff.
But because I was in the mindset then, I was in the mindset of like balancing, these two things that I didn't think they were equivalent or the same, but I thought
You're trying to be
you
a responsible money manager. It's
you
about
use them
diversification. It's like,
something like that, yeah.
yeah, I
And
mean,
and
oh,
I
sorry.
didn't grok like I got it all. The decentralization, the non-government money, everything. I didn't grok just how special. Like before, we were
How big
talking
of an
about
opportunity it is.
well, that, yes, but that, what I was getting at was like not even that, even although that's part of it. But if this really is like, to back to what we were saying before, that incorruptible substance, like that kind of human civilization has been searching for our entire history.
You could say once in a 5,000, 20,000 year
Well,
innovation.
it's almost as if we're always I mean, clearly we're always searching for a better money, and that's kind of the
Yeah.
story. One of the narratives of history is like going through the iterative process of finding a better money. But once you really understand what money is, and like what we ask of it, not only to send, value and energy through time and through space, but like money has to be capable of holding and being impervious to all of our deceits and all of our corruptions and all of our malice. It has to function. It has to be able to repel all of that in order to just continue doing what we need it to do. And because it's the most concentrated form of wealth and value that we all mutually agree to use to coordinate our behavior, if that becomes corrupted, then you get disorder, you get collapse. And what history shows is like that always, it's never been strong enough to repel our collective malice and corruption ever.
Yeah.
And we
Gold
may,
does the best job, but
yeah, but if it
still
failed,
leaks. It
yeah,
still leaks and is prone to centralization, can easily be stolen for centuries.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it wasn't the incorruptible substance. It played a
No,
role. It wasn't the incorruptible substance. If we're really dealing with, if there's even a chance that Bitcoin is that, like if it can really house and repel all of the worst aspects of our nature and still function for what we want it to function for, then it's such an incredibly big deal that it's impossible not to be consumed by it, basically, like intellectually and engaged in it. And that's what, as Bitcoiners, that's what we always talk about. And these transformative process that elucidates is also really interesting. But my point is, like, I didn't get that part of it until probably early 2018. Like once the bubble popped and I was like, all right, like, a little bit did not, of course you're dejected. I didn't think it was going anywhere, but you're like, it goes up to 20K and then it comes down to like
still hurts.
5 or 6. You're like, you got time to think, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's when I started seeing it that way. And then it's still ongoing. I mean, I continue to have new insights and see this from a different perspective. But I would say, kind of properly orange pilled, not until 2018 sometime.
Yeah, you could really like simplify the story of money to the human search of a substance that is incorruptible with an infinite stock to flow. And it's always been the search. And I think having a high scarcity overcomes all the other factors of money, but uncorruptibleness, I don't know if that's not a good word, but that's obviously next up on the list. And if you can have both, I mean, maybe uncorruptibleness has to be number one, because then if you have that, so that's pretty much the decentralization. It's the most important part. And then the next part's probably the scarcity. If you're talking about money like that, like the camp I always put myself in is a Bitcoin monetary maximalist, where I just think Bitcoin's the money. It's the only money. Anybody else trying to be money is like stupid. Like that's kind of a pointless. You're trying to fight an 800-pound gorilla that's just getting bigger and stronger every day. It's never going to happen. But yeah, that's pretty much where I sit at.
Yeah, and I think the big rabbit hole here is money. And that's why I think a lot of people got so much out of Safe's book. And reading that was really instructive for me too, because I didn't have the proper context for it all. I thought Bitcoin was cool, had a rudimentary understanding of the history of money, but I didn't really put them both together. And that's, his book obviously helped on that a lot. And Bitcoin is just kind of, once you go down the rabbit hole of what money is, so not just the history of money, but really what it is, then all you do is look over at Bitcoin and you go, holy shit, like
That's really fucking good money.
That's really fucking good money, and I can't believe I'm around for its development and first launch
right.
onto the world.
Like I'm around pre-monetization of the greatest money technology the humans have ever conceived of or made, invented, innovated, whatever. It's just you got to feel blessed, you know. Like
yeah.
with my I'm a peasant. I'm not Michael Saylor. I'm still stacking sats. I've got multiple bitcoins, plural. If only I can recover from the tragic boating accident.
Right, I know. Me too, man. It's hard. It's hard every time.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about the future. I'm pretty damn optimistic, honestly, for
Yeah.
how trying the times are. Like,
It's almost crazy, right? For all of us Bitcoiners to just be so jazzed for the future when literally, the world appears to be, if not falling apart around us, in a highly precarious position.
yeah, I think a lot of Bitcoiners were mentally prepared for this. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
like I was one of the people predicting it. I'm like, this shit, it's not going to work. Like I was like, but before I even understood the financial system, I was big on, hey, we got to take care of our debt. When I graduated school, I paid off my debt right away. And looking back, I'm like, if only I would have understood. Like the freaking Bitcoin was like $500 while I was plowing my fiat shit coins into the student debt.
it's
But
best not to look back. We
yeah,
all can't help ourselves sometimes, but it's just
yeah.
painful to look back and think, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I was just thinking that today. Like, if I could go back in time and change something, I don't know if I would have got to the position I am right now of understanding everything.
Yeah,
So, like, I was thinking, like, what if someone would have told me in 2014, look into Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin? Like, what if I would have done that and I would have thought it was a scam and held a grudge the rest of my life? Like, I'm not really that kind of person, but
yeah.
I'm just glad it worked out like this. Like, I
Well,
started shitcoining, made my way to Bitcoin. Like, it's all a cycle, how it's supposed to be.
as is often said, like if you bought in at $1, would you really have held past 100, past 1,000? Like, very few people would be able to answer that in the affirmative. And so whenever I catch myself looking back, I always just think, yeah, sure, great. If you want to cherry pick like, another dimension or another history, like it would have been great to rock up at the scene at Bitcoin in $1 with 20 grand in the bank and been like, I'll have 20,000 Bitcoin, please. And then I'll put it under my mattress until, 2021. And I'm a ruler of the world. But, that's not how it works. And why not be thankful that whatever got you in when you got in actually happened? I mean, you could be one of, the unfortunate souls that, it'll be 2025 before you have the light bulb moment where you're like,
Right?
holy
You stack
shit.
your first sat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as is often said, you have as much Bitcoin as you're supposed to have, sort of thing.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good place to leave it, man. This has been a fun conversation. Any last words before we shut it down?
No, it was great talking to you, man. If you ever make it down to Idaho, what part of Canada do you live in?
Well, I'm actually stuck here at the moment. I'm from Newfoundland, and that's where I am.
Oh,
And I
I
don't mean to.
forgot.
I don't mean to
We're
be
all kind of like isolated. Are Americans even allowed to leave the country?
exactly. So I usually live in Thailand, but they're
Oh shit,
still making it exceedingly difficult to get back. So I'm hoping sometime in the new year I'll be able to figure out a fix for it. But
dude,
I'll be in snowy Newfoundland until
I
then.
was just gonna say you're forced into a winter.
For Christmas I don't mind, but as soon as January hits, I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Idaho, man, that's cool. I spoke to a Bitcoiner in Idaho a while back. I can't remember where in Idaho he was, but that seems like one of the good states to be in these days. Am I wrong in thinking
Oh
that?
no, I love it. This is my final landing spot. I just need to put a couple years in of my lady making big law money and me making big money or making money in Orange County, and then we're gonna come back and buy a place and kind of
Lots of space,
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
good. It's a red state, right?
Yeah, you gotta like a lot of gun loving, freedom loving rednecks. So
Nice,
I feel
nice.
comfortable here. Not saying I'm like a gun loving.
Sounds like Citadel country.
Exactly. That's what I think of it. Like people aren't gonna want to like fuck with the people here because they all have guns and they're rednecks. So
All right. Well, if I'm passing through, I'll hit you up for sure.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy. It was really nice talking to you.
You too, brother. Take care.
All right, peace out.
See ya.